I've got a message here. Jake says, got it. I think we've started, so you don't have to wave your thumb. A warm welcome to a pod full of Saints, our second one in 5 days. Why we don't make it daily, I just don't know. It's our 40th edition of a 2021-22 season. And we've mentioned Jake already, so we better say hello to him. Good evening, Jake Ellacott.
Hello, Dave. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all well.
Well, we're looking better than you. I've got to be honest, Jake. Don't know how to break it to you. And a good evening to Lee Wood as well.
Good evening, Taz. Good evening, Jacob.
Right, we've got a couple of things to talk about. A City defeat, all right, that's nothing new. A good game down at Gallagher Stadium. Maidstone United 3, St Albans City 2. And then we're going to look at Monday night's Fans Forum, because we're recording this on Tuesday the 29th, is it? It is, of March 2022. Right, last Saturday, Gallagher Stadium, 3-2 defeat, as we said. We couldn't have got off to a worse start. Who wants to go with it? 2 down in 7 minutes.
The fact that Jake was still in the bar getting me a beer, I better start, I guess. So close, wasn't it? So close. There was a dawning realisation about 3 minutes in that this could be one of the worst experiences watching a St Albans City game I've ever. However, I have to say, take away the fact that we were 2-0 down after 8 minutes or whatever it was, I thought we played some of our best football for a long, long time. First half in particular. And I don't know whether there's a correlation between having David Noble on the pitch and us actually performing relatively well. I thought we were sensational in that first half. Obviously, goal aside, but I thought we passed the ball well. I thought we were looking hungry. We caused them lots and lots of problems. But when you just think it could be a fairy tale, it turns into an absolute nightmare. But I think there's hope. But again, it's still a loss, Tabs. You know, we can't get away from it. I'm not entirely sure we deserve to lose, but yeah, it's not as easy to take.
Those first 2 goals, Jake, how did they sound from the bar?
They actually sounded quite muted, I'll be honest. I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh, as if I've missed the first 2 goals, neither of them for City. Watching them back on the highlights, I think, especially the first one, I think poor defending. I think we can agree. You know, you've got to be clearing your lines there. And you say, you know, it wasn't a very bright start for us, but we battled back really well. And that for the first half, before we talk about any of our goals, you know, we talk about Nobby in midfield, but I thought we quietened the home crowd, actually. You know, big crowd, non-league day, Maidstone United. You know, after the first 20 minutes, they're looking for 4 or 5. But the Saints put their foot on the ball, took control, quietened the big home support. And, you know, by 35, 40 minutes in, you thought, there's a chance here. You know, the Saints could maybe not get something, but they won't embarrass themselves. So I have to say, you know, that first half, after those first 2 goals, the Saints have showed the fight and battling that we've been calling for the last couple of weeks. Yeah,
those first 2 goals, the first one, Joy McKenna should have put the header out, maybe, with hindsight. Should have put the header out for a corner rather than...
He's a good player.
Edge of the box. But Sam Corn just smashed the ball in and a great volley. But the first 2 goals both came from dead ball situations, which... I don't know if a crowd in the first few minutes got to referee, was it Ross Martin, but neither of them were fouls. The first one didn't look like Nobby touched him. The second one, Kyron, if he did touch him, it's the modern day player goes down because there's somebody within 10 foot of him. So neither free kick should really have been given. And it might have just been different, but we will never know. But maybe things didn't go our way. The third goal, they put us under so much pressure late on. I thought substitutions did us in. We were victims of our own downfall there. I spoke to Ian about it at the forum last night. He said Nobby had to come off. Nobby wanted to come off. He couldn't take any more. He was shot to pieces. I don't know what he said about Evan Jones. And the last one, Shaun, he said Shaun may be a bit of an injury, but I think he admitted on hindsight that was wrong, because you're taking on 3 players who were very much in the game at the time and putting on 3 players in a high pressure situation. And it was asking a lot for them to get up to speed. He also said about putting Alex on to strengthen that left-hand side, which is where the third goal came from, our left-hand side, because they were getting down that wing all the time. And unfortunately, it didn't work out. It's a shame, because he showed for about an hour, maybe more. We're competed very well.
Yeah, I think the Nobby substitution was a big one for me that changed the game. And as Ian said last night, he had to do it in the end because Nobby's body, is giving up on him. And it is a real shame because, as you said, they'd already pinpointed that left-hand side. And I thought after they'd brought Alex Lancashire on and changed the formation slightly, that's pretty much all Maidstone did, was just down that side. They targeted Alex and Cameron Green, and it worked sadly in the end. So, really unfortunate, but really great fight from the Saints in that 60-minute spell to battle back from 2-0 down against a very good team. 2 smart finishes from Shaun Jeffers, 2 good assists for it as well, we have to say. And so, yeah, I think, lots of positives to take from it, despite the negative, the real low moment of that final couple of minutes.
As Lee mentioned earlier, it's another defeat. 6 defeats in 7, 1 point. Yeah, here we are, still on the verge of the playoffs.
I think it's testament as well to what Ian touched upon in his post-match about the age and the naivety of our squad. I think it's the first time he's really addressed that. And I suppose his arm may have been twisted by the fact of just how well Nobby did actually play on the day of the game. It's so instrumental. For all of the money and players that Maidstone have, they couldn't get anywhere near him. He was a class above, albeit for 60 minutes or whatever it was. But I think now, and obviously touched again upon at the forum, the need for quality. Youth is great, youth is fantastic, and it'll get you so far. But my God, I think if anything proved how much we need a quality midfielder, then Saturday certainly was it.
Yeah, I think, Dave, to put on your point there about we're still on the edge of the playoffs, defeats like Saturday may have been painful, but they won't be the reasons we don't get into the playoffs, to be honest. I can accept losing against Maidstone United in that style. It's the likes of Braintree, Concord, etc. It's those games that I think Ian, again, touched upon it at the fans forum, turn those results the other way and we're comfortably in the playoffs. So, that is tight margins, but we're still in it. We've still got a chance and 7 games left. And Lee, we have to mention, I think we met probably the angriest man in Kent, maybe, on Saturday.
In the world,
angry possibly.
Dad.
The angry dad. There was a Maidstone fan, I think, quite deliberately stood next to us. He was absolutely fuming at sort of anything the Saints got, anything at all. I don't think he could believe his eyes when we got it back to 2-2.
Bobbing off everywhere, wasn't he?
Yeah,
but
right in front.
He was with his wife, who looked mortified at every given opportunity. He was with his 2 kids, who you'd have thought they would be the ones being exuberant, climbing up all over the terraces and shouting. This bloke, what a gammon. Seriously, what a gammon. But look, he got his day in the sunshine. He gave us some absolute chip. Don't get me wrong, we gave some back, and he took it all in good faith, didn't he, Jake?
He did, yeah. But hopefully he's calmed down a little bit by now.
You mentioned about the age of the back 4. Cameron Green, he's 23 in April. So he's got 4 or 5 years experience behind him. I know he wasn't playing Saturday. Callum Adebayo, he's 28 in a couple of months' time. His experience there. Tom Bender, certainly experience. You go to the younger ones if you want to. If I could find it here. Did I mention Clarkey? He's 24. And Joy McKenna coming up for 23 late this year. And there's one other one which I can't remember there. They're not that young, really. They've got 3, 4, 5 years experience behind them. How old do you want your back 4? I know, yes, you would like maybe a 30-year-old in there, but in Bender and Adebayo, you're not that far off it.
I think it'd be interesting to do a little piece of work comparing the age of the back 4 compared to other teams in the top 7 and 8, because I get the feeling there's probably a few sides that have more players like 28, 29, 30 in there. I mean, you mentioned Adebayo. I think he's been a real miss the last couple of weeks. He's got this injury. Talk is that hopefully he'll be back fit for Hungerford, we understand. But I think he's been a real miss. Tom Bender, I think he's been debatable this season. He's had a couple of good moments, but also some really shaky moments. But I think Adebayo's been the one that we've really missed. And I think overall, the back 4, we've just not had a consistent back 4 at all, have we? Apart from that really decent run at the start. Otherwise, the amount of combination of centre halves, left back and right backs we've had this season has been very high.
Again, I think you've got to pay tribute to Michael Clark. Yeah. Great job he's done since he came back from his injuries.
Yeah, I think absolutely. I think if we didn't have him, where would we be?
If we pay any more tributes to Clarkey, he's going to put in some sort of transfer, request. He's going to want to be playing in the bloody conference. Yes, he's a good player, but he's part of a side that have got 1 point out of a possible 21. So let's rein the necks in a little bit, because whilst they do deserve some sort of praise, they shouldn't be leaped upon, because the fact of the matter is we are a poor defensive unit currently who are leaking goals left, right and centre.
We just think where we could be. Shaun Jeffers, one of you mentioned earlier, about 2 good finishes Saturday, which they were proper poachers finishes, those 2. He's now scored 52% of our league goals this season. Only one other player has scored 52% or over 50%, if you like, of league goals in one season. That was Charlie Bunce back in 34-35. So just think, where would we be without him? Well, we can predict it already, because we know from you take those 6 games out at the start of the season where we had that run September, October, 6 straight wins. It's now 27 points from the remaining 27 games. Oh, that's relegation.
I'm honestly shocked it's not a high percentage of goals scores this season by Shaun, to be honest, because I can't really remember many other people scoring goals for us in the league this season. But, we all know where we'd be. I think everyone's very open about that. And I think, again, Ian's hinted at, too much reliance on him. But at the same time, he's done amazingly this season. And for a player with that record, I think he'd want to be getting inside the playoffs. So it's not Shaun's fault that no one else really has been around him scoring goals as well.
Exactly that, I mean, he's doing his job, So.
Isn't it funny, on Saturday, when we were defending corners, most of the time, we left one man up front. We left Shaun Jeffers up on the halfway line. We've not been doing it against lesser opposition. I spoke to Ian about it yesterday. He said we have. Well, sorry, Ian, but we haven't. Everybody's seen it. If you think, if we do that against the top club, why not do it against the lesser clubs who are going to put 2 or 3 defenders back to cover someone like Shaun? And it eases the pressure in the penalty area. Not that we're winning any headers back there anyway.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, I don't know, tactically, maybe Ian and Chris had spotted something that he could exploit against Maidstone from the set pieces. But yeah, it is interesting because, as you say, recent weeks, we've been under such pressure at set pieces. I mean, we talked about it before, but throwing back to that Billericay game, I mean, every single bloody free kick corner just bounced in the box because they had every man and their dog forward for them, didn't they? So, to counteract that, maybe we could do that. And hopefully, the Saints will start doing that for the final 7 games.
Before we get into a massive rut about dogs and Billericay, we really should be sort of concentrating on the fact that I quite like the fact that there was an attacking option from their set pieces, and it worked because their centre halves, they're big and they're strong, but I wouldn't say they were particularly rapid. And I think that was an area that Ian and Chris looked to expose at some points because it worked and it dragged them back quicker as well. So I thought we played magnificently for large periods of the game, but we can't get away from the fact that yet again we were travelling away from a ground on Saturday having got nil points.
Ian made a point about late goals we're letting in, but the record overall this season, 90th minute, okay, that's the 90th plus whatever injury time there is. We've conceded 5, but we've scored 4. But they even themselves out generally over the season, don't they?
Yeah.
I don't think we can argue that at all, can we?
No. Right, our next league game isn't for a fortnight. Hungerford Town, and it's funny, they are one of 6 clubs pushing for that final playoff place because the others should sort themselves out by the looks of it. We're not going to catch them. But there's nobody in form going for that place, apart from Havant and Waterlooville. They've won 4, drawn 3 of their last 7. You look at us, 1 defeat and 6 out of 7. Dulwich, 1 draw and 6 defeats. Dulwich, 2 draws, 3 defeats. Hungerford, 1 win, 4 defeats. Chippenham, 1 win, 2 draws, 3 defeats. Even Hemel, they go level on points with us on Saturday. 3 wins, 4 defeats. Nobody's really making a firm push for that 7th spot.
No, I think it's the one to look out for Havant, as you hinted at there. Yes. And I know that the management team and other people in the division, I think, that Havant have a very good chance of sneaking into that top 7 now because the amount of money they've put into that squad and investment. And in the games against them this season, we haven't seen it, have we? But it's coming to that final run-in, and we know that more often than not, there's one team that sneaks in on a very good run, and I think there's no reason why it can't be Havant. Because as you say, Dave, everyone else doesn't really seem interested in getting that final 7th place today. So, you know, it's up for grabs. And as we mentioned earlier, it's crazy that we're still in it, but we are in it. And, you know, it's 7 games to go.
But we're in it though, fellas. But it just makes it even more infuriating about some of the games we've had. You know, so infuriating. Do we deserve to be in the playoffs? For me, absolutely not. Nowhere near. However, the fact we are, let's just almost a reset and a reboot for the last 7 odd games. You know, let's use this fortnight sparingly, get some players fit and take the new 7 games as almost like a mini season, because I think the fact we're still anywhere near the playoffs is fascinating. It's almost as though we've been given a second opportunity to salvage the season. So let's take it.
It's ridiculous as it may seem, us getting into the playoffs as we are at the moment. Ian made a comment last night, said nobody would want to face us in a one-off match. We're a very dangerous side. And I'm struggling to see what that's based on. We couldn't beat Hitchin in the Hart Senior Cup. Cheshunt gave us a run around in the FA Trophy. Both of those are from lower levels. I'm struggling to see what he based that comment on, apart from maybe trying to rally the troops.
Yeah, but of course it is. And it's no more than that. He's not going to sit in front of a clubhouse full of fans and say, well, you know what, we're just the biggest bunch of cart horses in the world and we're quite fortunate to be where we are. He's not going to say that, is he? Of course he's not. I would flip it on its head. I think people will be looking at us. They would want to play us because at the minute we're on no sort of form. Yes, we've got the best striker in the entire division, but, you know, double it up on him and the rest of it is pretty much fodder.
I agree with what I said earlier. I think you've got a fancy having to take it at the moment. They're paying their money, might finally pay off a bit later than expected. And if they take that playoff that form into the playoffs, they're going to leave aside to try and stop.
Absolutely. But who knows? Maybe we'll win 7 on the bounce and we'll be the form team going into the playoffs, right?
Hey, listen, I like a drink. I mean, listen, I like a drink as much as anyone, mate, but I'm not entirely sure what you're basing that on, Jacob.
I think that's drugs as well, Lee. It's got to be, hasn't it? It can't just be drink.
Look at him. Yeah.
Yeah. Right, is there anything else of interest? 139th, 3-2 defeat. Whoopee.
We talk about that sort of, Lee, you mentioned a reset there. And I do really get the feeling that Ian is trying to use this week as freshen up the squad, take a break and go again. He revealed again last night that they won't be training the rest of this week. And even though they've got the game for Ukraine on Saturday against Dagenham at Clarence Park, he said that's a good opportunity almost to try and get some fitness back to a couple of injured players. And apart from that, you know, you do really get the sense that he's now aiming for this final 7 this week, totally restart again. And as you know, there was a question last night about whether we should be playing this game in terms of if for the squad, but this has probably come at the perfect time, isn't it? 2-week break, and go again for that final run in and see where you end up. So hopefully it can work a bit of magic. And also, interestingly, next week it gives them a bit of chance to work on the training pitch. Because Lee, they mentioned last night how restricted they've been with the Tuesdays. They haven't been able to train in midweek. So hopefully it might work a bit of magic before Hungerford.
As you mentioned, Adebayo might be fit for Hungerford. Maybe he'll get a bit of a game Saturday. Romeo Akinola, I think it's hoping to play him Saturday. Anybody know what's happened to Banny? Is he still on this planet?
He went out on loan somewhere, didn't he?
Yeah, didn't he get injured or something?
No idea. I know he scored an absolute weldy for wherever he was out on loan earlier this season, but I haven't seen him since. So,
right. So I think we can assume he's not going to be in the running. But of course, Tem Bonda, you know what I mean. He comes back into contention as well. So as you say, it is a good time to have this break so as other players can have that game Saturday. It's all working in our favour, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Nothing can go wrong, gentlemen.
No. Right. Talking of nothing going wrong, we had a fans forum last night. First one in 3 years or so. We've got a few points to talk about here. My first point is actually the turnout. I thought that was pitiful. The number of actual supporters, you take the club people away, and it was 20, 25 at most. And bearing in mind our gates have more than doubled up to roughly 12, 13, 1400 we're getting each week now. There wasn't a single one of the kids there, was there? Any idea why?
I was quite surprised by the low turnout in a way, but also having gone to these events before, you know, as much as we've seen this uplift in support, you know, I think it was inevitable. I think it was noticeable that hasn't been particularly promoted by the club in the last sort of 2 weeks, maybe, that could have attracted a few more people, but it is what it is. You know, it's the usual hardcore of supporters who have sadly stuck, you know, with the Saints for most of their lives and still going with it. So, you know, like us, basically.
But you talk about the upturn in attendances and support. You know, we all know the situation. The majority of people there, their support ends at 5 o'clock on a Saturday. You know, it doesn't extend past that really, but that may come over the course of time. Jake, interesting you sort of touched upon there. It wasn't particularly well promoted by the club, considering the owners got their, you know, arseholes handed to them, mate. But between at the last one, not entirely surprised. But I think this one, people wanted to hear from Ian. No one wanted to hear from the owners this time around. They wanted to know what was going on the pitch, why there was such a dramatic downturn in form, and there were some tidbits that we could sort of take away. And Ian was very good, you know, in letting us know the ins and outs of why we didn't sign this player or why we're going down this particular route. I think I spoke to another fan there, and he was interested that no one asked Lawrence any more questions. But what's he going to tell us that wasn't different from 4 years ago? You know, it's the same thing until we can get, you know, concrete news that there's a new ground or whatever. You know, fine. His notes could have been exactly the same as 4 years ago. This time was all about the team and why we weren't doing certain things and what is Ian's take on the downturn in form. And it was really interesting to sort of see how many people were really waiting for Ian to come up to the mic.
I think everybody. Final point on the turnout. Yeah, when you were a kid, Lee, we didn't have these things, and when I was a kid, we didn't either. By the way, 52nd anniversary of my first match yesterday. We celebrated it with the fans forum, jolly nice. Wouldn't you have wanted as a kid to be able to go to something like that? Wouldn't it have been fascinating? Which I find it all the more surprising. Not one of them turned up last night.
I think I was going to say, as Lee mentioned, I think it takes time for these people to fully get on board and ingrained in the club. And, you know, the doubling in attendances has been brilliant for a match day, but it has only been, 7 months, 8 months for a lot of these people really getting behind the team. And for a lot of those people, they weren't particularly fans before COVID. As you say, they didn't have last season. You know,
I'm talking to the youngsters, Jake.
No,
the youngsters rather than the adults. Yeah?
No, I agree.
I'll
tell you what it is, because when I was a kid, you could go into the bar and you could talk to the players and they were making themselves available and they would sit at your table and they would discuss about how the match went and you could talk to the manager. I don't feel that's the same now. Yes, the players come up to the bar, but they're very sort of sticking to themselves. And whilst I love the professionalism that the club have a vision for, I feel it's lost some of the genuine non-league entity in terms of that amalgamation of fans and players you have in the bar when I was a kid. You know, the fact of the matter is we didn't really need a fans forum because you could ask the players pretty much anything. And okay, some of them would just sort of mug you off, quite rightly, but at least you've been given an opportunity to ask the management and the players, but in like a nice way, you know, over a social element. It's just really, really weird because I expected a lot more fans in the clubhouse last night, but maybe they're happy with their lot. Maybe these fans are more than happy with the way things are going in terms of they just want to rock up, get their falafel, you know, get their beer and then go home. Maybe they don't want to know the nuances behind what makes a football club like ours tick.
Well, the new ground, if we ever get one, the owner who gave his speech suggested there's 2 sites, didn't name either site. He said it's old ground. The contractor who builds it, they got to take out their profits, build a football ground in it as well, and pay for it for us. Well, the Noke they wanted a high-tech one, state-of-the-art. It was a load of nonsense, £27 million. There was never a cat in hell's chance of any contractor doing that and say, yeah, we built a football ground for you. It's 27 million. All right, we've lost 15 million on it now, but there you go. That's never going to happen. So you wonder what they're looking for now. Presumably it's much level. We're down to about 5 million. It's still hard to see a contractor saying, yeah, we've built you a ground for 5 million. But you've got better knowledge than most of us on the new ground, Lee.
Have I?
Yes.
Who on earth told you that? The one thing, okay, so the one thing I would say is the council are very pro football club in terms of, you know, they want us to succeed, they want us to grow. But at the minute, all they're seeing is our gates are doubling. We're having a fantastic atmosphere, and we are housing all those fans quite comfortably at Clarence Park. Their priority is housing. Their priority is not about giving us a flashy new ground. The conversations are ongoing, you know, and I believe that the football club have been speaking to one of the rugby clubs about a ground share with 4G and sponsorship aplenty. But, you know, these things take time. And I went to a Chamber of Commerce event last week, and Chris White, the leader of the council, and Amanda Foley were there. And they said, well, the council plan, sorry, the local plan's been shelved, and they've got a new one coming in 2025. I think, you know, so if we want to be part of that council plan, you're looking at 6-7 years before there's even a brick laid in anger, and unless the club can work side by side with a contractor and get it through without the plan. So, I mean, it is what it is, but we're at the same position we were 4 years ago. It was interesting. Before I logged onto this, I had a memory pop up on my Facebook, and 4 years ago today was the day we announced the new proposal at Noak Lane. And we, you know, that I honestly believe that was the situation when, you know, fiction became reality in terms of a new ground for the club. I saw the work that was going in behind the scenes. I saw the level of conversations that were being had, and they were nothing like we'd experienced in the past. And I thought generally that was it. And the council didn't even open up the proposal because they knew it was not what they wanted at all. But whether you want a new ground or not, the conversations are still ongoing. And you know, by all intents and purposes, they're quite positive. So, but again, it's not. And I think Lawrence said last night that they were looking towards the end of this year to put in the planning application or whatever it was. So yeah, I mean, he's obviously got, you know, the bit between his teeth, and maybe it's going to be sooner rather than later. But who knows?
Yeah, he did say that they were pretty. Sorry, Dave. You were saying they're pretty close to signing contracts, didn't he? And, you know, and suggesting by the end of this year we'll hear more. But to me, you know, someone that's not been particularly involved in any stadium stuff or really knows the ins and outs of local council, etc. As you say, Lee, look back on that 4 years. At this point now, we're actually behind where we were 4 years ago, really, because we're not in a position to announce plans, announce what we're doing. I think, you know, most people would surmise that we're probably going to it's probably going to be the Noak still again, although there was some mention of a second site potentially. We don't know, but you know, and Lee, you mentioned that local plan. I think that is really central to it at the minute, isn't it? You know, that local plan. We'll see what happens with it, but it's whether the club can negotiate that. I don't think it's going to be easy. The club has the council support on the face of it anyway, but I think it's going to be a really tricky period. And as we saw last year, you can announce it and promote it and say everything's going to get going now. But as we saw 4 years ago, we still haven't got the ground now. We aren't any closer, so we don't know where it is. But interestingly, you know, they mentioned a 10-year plan. Are they put that 10-year plan? Does that involve a very long lead time for the ground now? Who knows?
Well, the owners have been here 11 years now. They've banged on about a ground a long time. In 11 years, we still haven't even got proper training facilities, as the owner, Ian Anson and Dean Austin all mentioned last night. So if they can't get proper training facilities in 11 years, what hope a new ground? Anyway, I think we can move on from that now because I think we know the answer. Ian Hall put the question, is a club in a better financial position than it was some time back? After a bit of faffing around, the owner said the secretary told him he made 160 grand from the FA Cup. Well, this seems unlikely. We made 151,000 from TV revenue and the prize fund. We had 2 gates of over 4,000. Plus, you've got sponsorships and other unforeseen bonuses. So that 160 seems somewhat a low figure to me. I know, as I say, we had high outgoings, but they also said that money has been available to Ian Anderson to boost the squad. But as we know, he's brought in fewer players during this season than any other of his seasons at the club.
Are you questioning the complete transparency that was the buzz phrase floating around that fans forum last night, David?
I think you can question the transparency of a club ever since it's been founded, I should think, Lee, when it comes to finances.
Two things. One, you have been one of the biggest critics of this administration, this tenureship, but yet you do my head in, mate, because you didn't say a single word last night. At one point, I was going to check your pulse to make sure you're actually sort of still with us. Secondly, as regards to Ian Hall's questions, I mean, considering the bloke is a journalist, he was 2 questions away from asking them which was their favourite Spice Girl. I mean, the level of questions was absolutely shocking from Ian Hall, and I love the man. I love the man with all his youthful exuberance for a 52-year-old fella. But however, you know, the quality of questions coming out from him last night was shambolic.
To be fair, I think we have to praise him for the question about the club finances. I think that was a good question to ask, actually. I think, and it did lead to the FA Cup discussion. And you say, Dave, not totally sure about the figures, but you know, he did say net profit. Are they taking out, as you say, the expenditure for the Forest Green game and Boreham Wood? And are they taking out the expenditure already spent? Because Lawrence, someone questioned, well, asked, I think it was Duncan actually asked, have they already spent some of the cut money on stuff for the ground, planning and lawyers, etc.? So I don't know if that comes to that. We'll never know, and I wouldn't expect Lawrence to reveal it all. So, but yeah, it was interesting to hear him after all say the club is in a better financial position.
To answer your question, Lee, yes, I was dying to ask some questions last night, but it was 4 people in that room at the front end there. I don't even want to be on the same planet as them, let alone stuck in the same room, so I didn't want to talk to them.
I don't think you are, mate, half the sort of time. So it was just frustrating because I know that we've spoken at great length and you'd have some amazing questions. And it was almost like people who do watch the pod would be looking to the likes of yourself to put the more probing questions to the owners and to Ian. And it just didn't. And I was like, I was sort of sitting next to young Jacob, sort of almost giving him like a nudge to see whether you were still alive, because it was crying out for one of your witty questions, which so many fans wanted to know the answer to, mate.
Well, it wasn't funny because the owner who gave the first speech said any questions, and it was total silence. Then I think Duncan, a couple of others chipped in just to keep it going. And even when Ian got up, there weren't that many questions. Mind you, there weren't many supporters, that's why. And some of them were predictable. And it finished a good hour earlier than one would have expected after a 3-year gap since the last one. Apathy rules.
Yeah, but we've been to these things before, and it's, you know, the longer it goes on, the more absurd the questions get. You know, if money was no answer, who would you want to sign? I mean, you know, it's just, well, bless him. But the thing is, you know, I think they covered most of it. Nor we shouldn't be expected to know the ins and outs of the finance, and nor do we really, really care, because as long as the club, as long as Ian's getting the money to strengthen the side, that's fine. And he said that he's been given that. It's just a matter of now he isn't doing his end of the bargain. So that's why I think people wanted to speak to Ian. They didn't really want to give a monkey's what the owner said, because they've heard it before and they'll hear it again. But Ian was the man that we wanted to hear from last night.
Right. The finances, I think supporters have got every right to know every penny that's in that club, because over the course of a season, the biggest investor in the club is all its supporters, not the owners. As a unit, we put more money into the club than they do. So why are we excluded from the figures? But it's not just our club, it is all clubs. And I think that's one of the mistakes football makes. Right, we'll move on away from that. The squad. They told us the squad get on well. Michael Johnson apparently said it's the best squad he's ever known. They all stand up for each other. They get on great. And we got an abysmal record. They're probably all going to buy each other a nice Easter egg in a few weeks' time as well, because they know each other. They get on so well. Wouldn't it be better from a supporter's point of view, particularly those who have to pay the highest terrace fee, entrance fee in the league, to have a squad out there that probably can't stand each other, but go out there and win games rather than one that get on well and never wins?
Isn't that a cliche though? You know, I mean, we have heard of it. There've been changing rooms at this club where we know players have absolutely despised each other. I mean, to a mighty force of a nova, you know, total hatred. However, when they cross that line, they're the best of buddies. You know, they are a band of brothers, teammates to a beyond. I don't really think it matters. I think the only thing that matters is results. Results at this stage. This is the business end, Tavs, and we're not getting those, mate.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have to like each other to get on, as you said, once they get over that line. And another thing that came from it, from Dean Austin, when we're looking at players, because he's now got a scout or someone who goes looking at players and has to deal with their agents, but they stress this club will never pay an agent to sign a player. We wait and see. But it's say signings have to fit, I think it's a club profile or something. What on earth does that mean? Surely we're building a blooming football team, not a modelling agency.
It's the shape of the modern football club now, Tavs. You know, and this is the exact sort of role that a director of football wants to implement upon a football club. He has to outline a vision and the reason why they're signing. You know, gone are the days now where Ian's signing 2 or 3 players from this club or 1 player from that club. He's bringing it willy sort of nilly. There's got to be a structure now because that's the way the club have chosen to go, which is fine. But sign some players. One name which did pop up yesterday was that of Sam Cox. He's been widely touted on social media. He's even been out there himself saying how much he would like to sign for the club. And obviously, Ian said yesterday that one of the reasons he didn't sign is because he couldn't train on a Tuesday. He was happy to play on a Tuesday, but wouldn't want to train. So, and it doesn't quite fit the ethos that the club are trying to build around professionalism. But very interesting. But this is the sort of thing, the interaction and the information that we were there for last night, because in a time when we've seen one of the worst turns of form post-war, I imagine, absolutely shocking that the fact that, you know, just the run and the way we're playing, the performances and the point count has just been shambolic. So yes, this is why it was important we spoke to Ian, and important for him also to get his opinion across to us.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I think he suggested as well that they had one player that they were almost lining up to pay a fee for, that they couldn't get over the line, and some other players that were looking for loans. And I think got the impression that almost all of those would have been a central midfielder. And again, got the impression from him that, you know, maybe he regrets not signing a midfielder now, especially after Nobby's performance on Saturday. But he spoke about how, you know, he didn't know how long Nobby would take to get fit. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I think it was really good to hear Ian's side of things, because I'd argue in a lot of the post-match press this season, he's not really had the chance to get a lot of his opinions across in regards to transfers, squad, etc. So it was really
because he's not been asked the questions, Jake.
I agree.
Been a hole in, mate.
I agree. And, you know, they've not been the best. And so it was good that fans had a real chance to speak to him. And we know fans go up to Ian and speak to him all the time at Clarence Park, because he's a brilliant manager like that, and he'll happily be open and honest with you. But it was good for him to do it on record at a public forum like that. So it was really good to hear him speak like that. And it's good to see actually him and Dean sort of working together at the fans forum and sort of interacting, because let's be honest, you know, since Dean's appointment, we haven't really been clear on what his role is and how he interacts with Ian. So I thought that was quite interesting as well.
Do we know now? Ian's actually had a worse run. 8 games, 7 defeats and 1 point in the 16-17 season. So it's a utopia at the moment.
Yeah, it seems it.
But I still don't know. A player must fit the profile of a club. That one goes way above me. And there's also, you mentioned earlier about a 10-year plan and a 3-year plan. What the hell are they? Well, did we learn what they are?
I thought
when they're finished it, they're going to let us know, aren't they? So it's
Yeah, they said they'd publish at least some aspects of it, didn't they? Maybe not the full report, well, obviously, but yeah, sort of 10-year broken down into 3 years, and we'll have a list of club values as well, won't we? So a lot of business speak. We'll see how that works. I thought in terms of the 3-year plans, at least on the pitch, got the impression that within 3 years we'll go to morning training sessions 3 to 4 days a week. Oh, you know, Dean and Ian were quite open about that. If we don't go up this season via the playoffs, but aside from that, wasn't particularly clear what those plans are, and I think it all feeds back into, in a way, into the stadium, doesn't it? Really, because you know, whatever it's going to be, what's the net 4 or 5 year plan at Clarence Park? Because they've done a lot of improvements now, but then how do they improve, etc.? How do they step on? So, yeah, I think hopefully we'll get. I think they said fairly soon, didn't they? We'll get to see the 10-year plan, at least aspects of it. But yeah, it wasn't. Again, understandable. They said they hadn't fully finalised it, so we didn't get a full impression of it yet.
We mentioned ever training 3 mornings a week, which if we stay part-time, you can't see happening. A lot of players won't be able to do it. But they also said, because someone put the question, if we should go up this season, can we go full-time next season? And having originally said no earlier on, you know, we're looking for the season after. Then somebody put this question in. Oh yeah, we've looked at that as well. So God knows where we are.
Well, you know, I think I can understand. He did say, you know, it was Dean answering those questions, wasn't it, about the training sessions? And he did say, you know, that he's spoken to the owners about if they have to forward the plan quickly, because there was an probably everyone agreed in the room that you can't go into the National League training 2 days a week, Tuesday, Thursday. But I think, you know, the mornings, I think they mentioned that, and I think that's probably with an eye to going full-time player-wise on the pitch anyway, you know, and I think that's the route that they will aim to go down to. And again, Ian mentioned he'd spoken to Hakan at Maidstone, didn't he? And that's what they do. Most sides see them as full-time. They might not be full-time, but 3 mornings a week, I think, can work at this level. So, yeah, Dave, it'll be interesting to see if we are properly full-time in that respect. But it seems like they're set on going down that way. And I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing from the playing side of things.
No, from our point of view, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fitter the players are, we'll get more goals in the 90th minute. How do you see that, Lee? Part-time, full-time? Well, we can't go full-time while we're at this level, surely.
We can't, but I think we've got a foundation now where, as Jake said, and the question was put to by, I think it was Les, who asked it fantastically. We've seen us go up into the top tier of non-league football, and I think adrenaline and naivety got us through the first couple of months. But after that, when we weren't even able to train, you could see we were getting absolutely rinsed on a weekly basis by clubs that were full time. It is frustrating. I mean, it's odd because players at this level, as was pointed out last night, they're either ex-pros or they play for pro clubs, or you know, they've got aspirations to be pros. Then if that is the case, then training 3 mornings a week is going to be the bare minimum that you should be requiring from these players. I think we may lose a couple if we do go full time, because you know they've got jobs and they're going to earn a lot more in those jobs, and then they will be traipsing along the likes of Tamworth and Solihull for St Albans City. But again, this is the aspiration now that we have to look at. Do we want our club to progress? Yes. In that case, we're going to have to become full time at some point in order to do that, and it'd be very interesting to see how far up that list of the 10-year plan for becoming full-time actually sort of falls into it, or really.
Yeah, you wonder, do they really want to get that new ground as quickly as possible, and all the extra revenue streams they would envisage you're going to get from it, including increased gates? But our gates now are far better than I've ever known in my lifetime. So they're already at a high level. And also you've got all these other outlets within the ground, because it's turned into a glorified pub garden rather than the nice Clarence Park that we know it. But it all brings in a lot more money. So there's a lot more money coming in than ever. Is it enough to turn us full time? The owners want to restrict how much they put in. They want the club self-sufficient. One suspects we're still not at that level.
No, it's interesting, isn't it, how they're going to balance out the sort of the finance, but also this professionalism that they're trying to grow in on and off the pitch. It's difficult to do without, say, a new stadium. And again, we don't know how long down the road that's going to be. So it's very interesting. But I think, again, you mentioned earlier, Dave, and one of the key points again from Dean and Austin was they're just desperate to have proper training facilities, a full pitch, a full-size pitch, I think, is all they want on a 3G surface. And they're speaking about how hard that is to get for Tuesday and Thursday nights, which I can definitely attest to. I think if they move that, I think that's one of their key desires for moving to mornings, because they could have free range of a 3G pitch for the whole morning. So, yeah, I think there's definitely pressure from the playing side of things. It's whether the owners or the finances are able to match that.
You've got to be
If you
really
can
careful,
bring-
though, fellas, haven't you, Tabs? No, sorry, mate. I was just going to say, you've got to be very, very careful because you've got to invest in the here and now. Having a vision of a new ground is fantastic. Of course it is. But there's no point you overseeing what's happening right in front of you to get to that long-term goal. You can have a nice, posh new ground. But if you've got 800 people rattling around inside of it, there's not a lot of good. Your fan base is here. It is grown now. Invest in the squad. Keep us remain competitive. At that point, the interest will remain. At that point, the fans will go with you along the journey to where you want to be. If you just totally forego the quality or the entertainment value on the pitch, the team, which is the nucleus of the whole club, then what's the point?
There was one comment which I really didn't understand. I think it was the joint owner who said it. We're a bigger club than Stevenage. Where on earth has that come from? You look at us on the pitch, you look at us off the pitch. They struggled since they got in the Football League, we know that. Us bigger club than Stevenage? What a load of codswallop.
Yeah, not at the moment, but I think he was looking more towards the growth, wasn't he? Potentially, and you never know. Stevenage, especially the crowds aren't amazing, but if this feeds into that and it feeds into keeping those fans and the pitch, you've got to be entertained. You've got to be competitive. Lawrence even mentioned that early on, that part of the product is actually entertaining football. We had that as first half season up to Forest Green. We haven't had it since, but it goes back into the investment in the squad, playing good football. If you don't play good football, people aren't always going to want to come. So, yeah, it all feeds into one. As much as there's these big 10-year plans, often it all comes down to what's going on the pitch, doesn't it?
And also, the fact of the matter is, sorry, mate, sorry. I was just going to say,
I'll hand the floor over to you, Lee. Go on, I'll come back afterwards.
The one definitive thing that Stevenage have got over us is they've got loads of land and they've got they had a supportive Labour council, and they were crying out to help Stevenage become the professional outfit that they now are. We haven't got those two luxuries currently. We haven't got the space, and we haven't got a council whose full top agenda is to make a professional football club out of us.
Because one way to save money, you hope successfully, is to have a good academy set up, which our club thinks it has. And we brought 2 players through in particular this season. They're in and out of side at the moment. They think the league that is it the B team or reserve team, whatever they call him, there's nothing on their website, much information to help you. The Hearts County League they went in this season isn't strong enough, so they're putting them in the Suburban League next season, which is more of a men's team, what it was in the past, because we were in it from 1988 to 92, and they think that'll help their development. So that might help bring 1 or 2 players more through. But the chances really of getting more than 2 local players in your first team at any one time is very unlikely. Great if you can do it.
Yeah, it's difficult. They've got big aspirations for the academy, and I think we have to say the academy has done well so far. Hats off to them and Dean. But it is a big stretch. You've got to do it, and it's going to be hard. I think there is probably 1 or 2 players. Aaron Austin and one other potentially that could make a step up in the next year or 2. But aside from that, it is going to be difficult to get that conveyor belt of players, isn't it? Because especially in an area like St Albans, when you've got the academies of Arsenal, Tottenham, Watford, all the other local sides, even some of the smaller sides, they've got competitive academies. So but I think it will be good for the players to step up to a tougher league, and hopefully that can feed into the first team.
Oh, come on. When did an Arsenal youth player make a success of his career? Oh, yeah, David Noble.
On that note, you concluded it fantastically well there, David.
Right. Is that it from last night?
I think so. I think so.
Yeah, I think the trust will be releasing some notes, a sort of a summary of the night in the next day or two. So that'll be on the trust website and on the trust Facebook page. If you have a look there.
Talking of a trust, Jake.
Okay.
Well, I think you two should do another prediction thing. But what's going to happen first? Get a new ground or trust run a coach to an away game?
Oh dear, Dave, you're such a troublemaker, aren't you? I'd say coach.
It's going to be close.
Deary me. We've got to do prediction for the Dagenham and Redbridge game.
No.
Oh dear me.
It's time to put the dinner on.
Well, on that note, we listen. We are so grateful for the messages of support that we've been getting about the pod, even though it's basically just three blokes waffling on in their kitchens. But we do want to hear your voice. We want to hear your opinion on all things Saints. Jacob, give them the Twitter handle, my friend.
Yep, it's at a pod full of Saints on Twitter, and the email as well will be listed by Dave. So yeah, if you've got any comments, questions or thoughts, good or bad, agree or disagree, on and off the pitch, just let us know and we'll be happy to discuss. And yeah, because we haven't got much else to talk about.
There's no wins coming, are there? So it's
well, I mean, this week especially, there's no game to talk about really. So come on, give us something. Oh dear, Dave, well, you look so happy.
I never felt better in my life, Jake. Thanks for cheering me up no end tonight.
Goodness me. Well, on that note, I think we've got to say goodbye. I think we've bored everyone enough.
Yeah, especially Taps. Look at him. Look,
yeah.
This is like how he was last night at the forum.
Oh dear. Well,
right. On that note,
right.
Thank you very much, everyone. Bye bye.
See you soon.